Who doesn't know Japan? Japan is famous for its advanced technology, safety, and unique blend of nature and culture. It's a global leader in electronics, robotics, and automotive industries and offers a high quality of life with a low crime rate. It's a great country to live in, don't you think? Sadly, if you look closer, you can see the problems that you usually can't see in Japan. In most places, when you finish your education, it's time to get out of there and start your professional journey. Even though Japan has a great education system and values a good career, many middle-aged folk are stuck in a tough situation. They can't find respectable jobs and they feel lonely. It leads to psychological problems and isolation, and sometimes much worse than this. Why is this happening in a country known for its education? Let's explore the puzzling story of Japan's employment ice age. Part 1. The Japanese Miracle. Let's take a trip back to a time when Japan faced incredible challenges. After World War II, they didn't have much, but here's the fascinating part. They didn't just recover, they orchestrated a remarkable transformation, often referred to as the Japanese economic miracle. But what exactly did they do? Japan used 4 powerful tricks. They leveraged advanced technology, saved and invested wisely, improved both the number and quality of their workers, and expanded their international trade connections. The Japanese miracle was 3 decades of incredible economic growth, a feat made possible by Japan's unique economic system, which was perceived as superior to the Western model. At its core, it was built on cooperation between massive corporate alliances and the Japanese government. These alliances, known as keiretsu, were essentially unions of Japan's largest corporations owning shares in each other and working together to boast their collective power. The biggest keiretsu received strong support from the government in the form of big loans provided by the state-owned National Bank of Japan. This gave them an almost limitless cash flow to fuel their expansion overseas, and at the same time, it is shutting out foreign companies from entering the Japanese market. It wasn't a fair or equitable system, but it worked. The Japanese stock market was thriving. Japanese products were conquering global markets, and the average person knew that hard work and a university degree, they could secure a stable job at a major corporation, a lifetime guarantee. Japan appeared invincible. Everything seemed perfect. But as we know, all good things come to an end. Part 2. The bursting of the economic bubble. Fast forward to 1991, and Japan enjoyed 3 decades of shining growth, making it the world's second largest economy, just behind the United States. That isn't a small feat, is it? As the economy expanded, so did real estate prices and the values of companies listed on the stock market. However, things took a dangerous turn in the late 1980s as this growth transformed into a panic. In this crazy phase, almost everyone believed the good times would roll on forever. The more you invested, the more you'd earn. Meanwhile, the National Bank of Japan was printing and lending money to anyone who asked, regardless of the purpose or the borrower's trustworthiness. And then, one fateful day, the bubble burst. In 1990, the stock market plunged by a jaw-dropping 43%, and real estate prices followed suit. The bursting of this bubble meant regular folks had much less money to spend, and no one wanted to invest in Japanese companies anymore. The economic boom had come to a screeching halt. To make matters worse, the post-bubble years exposed rampant corruption in Japanese business and government. From insider trading to stock manipulation, fraud, bribery, you name it, it was happening. The almost limitless supply of loans had given rise to hundreds of zombie companies. These were businesses that should have gone under ages ago, but they somehow kept on surviving thanks to a constant stream of cheap money borrowed from the government. In just 1 decade, Japan went from being hailed as an economic tiger, riding the wave of the Japanese miracle, to being labeled the sick man of Asia. From 1995 to 2007, Japan's GDP fell from $5.33 trillion to $4.36 trillion. Japan's debt levels continued to rise, driven by a series of major events like the global financial crisis in 2007, the devastating Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, the Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011, and the COVID-19 pandemic starting in 2020. As of March 2023, Japan's government owes about $9.2 trillion US. This amount is huge, and it's about 263% of everything Japan makes in a year, or its GDP. This is the highest for any other developed nation. So why did this happen, and what does this have to do with the fact that nowadays many people in Japan cannot find jobs? Part 3. The Lost Generation. To answer this question, you must have a deep understanding of Japan's work culture. It is intense, way beyond the average person's capacity. It possesses unique features that set it apart from any other job market globally. In Japan, a corporate career kicks off with Shushoku Katsudo, which is a rather odd job hunting ritual undertaken by university graduates at the end of their studies. Many companies, including the biggest Keiretsu, hire fresh graduates only once a year in massive numbers. These fresh graduates endure a stressful job hunting process filled with group interviews, seminars, and scores of applicants dressed in identical black and white suits. At the end of it all, they secure a job and hold on to it for decades, in line with the common policy known as Shushin Koyo, or lifetime employment. In Japan, companies mainly choose their leaders from their own employees. They support and train their workers over time so that they can become future top managers. While these practices prevalent in the 1990s and still common today bring stability, they also make the job market very rigid. To secure a good job, you have one shot right after university, and once hired, you're committed to that company for life. However, if you miss this opportunity, the doors of most companies remain forever closed. Now, when the economic bubble burst and the economic boom came to a stop, this ritual was shattered. During the boom, landing at least some corporate job wasn't terribly difficult, but after 1990, most companies halted their hiring, leaving graduates in limbo. They essentially stopped hiring fresh graduates to retain their lifelong employees during the economic crisis. Eventually, they resumed hiring in the new century, though finding a job became much tougher. For a whole generation of people who graduated in the 1990s, it was too late. They were no longer fresh graduates, so companies wouldn't hire them. These were the people born at the wrong time, and they missed the boat. This meant that millions of unlucky people were left behind. They were destined to spend their lives in temporary part-time and low-paying jobs. This era became known as the Employment Ice Age, and those who graduated during this period were dubbed the Lost Generation. Since the Japanese economy never fully bounced back, more young people graduating in the 2000s and 2010s joined their ranks, and collectively, the last 30 years are referred to as the lost decades. The doors of opportunity were closed, and millions were left out in the cold, marking a haunting chapter in Japan's modern history. The legacy of the lost generation extends to another concerning issue. A group of young people in Japan, known as hikikomori, this term refers to adolescents who choose to stay in their rooms and disconnect from society. They started doing this because they couldn't find jobs, and now about a third of them, who are now 40 years old, are still living like shut-ins. In fact, there are approximately 613,000 hikikomori, according to a government survey in March 2019. But the lost generation doesn't stop there. It also introduces the 80-50s problem. This issue revolves around middle-aged Japanese individuals who are reclusive, without jobs, and rely on their elderly parents for housing and financial support. Part 4. A Gloomy Future. The situation of the lost generation isn't just sad for them, it's a big problem for all of Japan. Many folks in their 30s and 40s can't find work, and they often have to live with their parents. They can't afford to start families, and they don't have good jobs. About 15% of Japan's population, around 17 million people, are part of this lost generation. What's even worse is that some of the recent violent incidents in Japan might be linked to the turmoil caused by the Employment Ice Age. Take, for example, Michinao Kono, who in May 2019 used a knife to harm 2 people and injure 19 more. He was a 45-year-old man without a job who had never moved out of his parents' house. Then there's the Joker attack in November 2021, carried out by Kyoto Hotori, an unemployed man who felt frustrated with society as a whole. Even the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's attacker, Tetsuya Yamagami, had a tough time securing a full-time job after serving in Japan's self-defense force. Japan is also dealing with another problem called super aging. It has more old people than almost any other country. By 2050, there might be as many old people as working age people. The story of the lost generation reflects Japan's big issues: a stuck economy, an aging population, and mental health struggles. Japan is trying hard to fix these problems, but they're deeply rooted. Changing how people work, offering different job options, and focusing on individuals' well-being could lead to a better future. Japan's journey forward means shifting how society thinks and making big policy changes. Understanding the lost generation story lets us see the tougher side of Japan, a nation many admire. As Japan deals with these issues, the world watches. It's a reminder that even the most respected countries carry dark secrets.